Hello everyone and welcome back to Rugby Today. There are three massive test matches coming your way this Saturday, and each of them carries real weight for the November series as a whole, and of course the all-important Rugby World Cup draw. We've got Wales against the All Blacks, Ireland against the Springboks, and France against the Wallabies. Three stadiums, three storylines, and three very different levels of pressure for the sides involved. So let's get straight into all of the action, starting off in Cardiff, where of course we have that Wales versus New Zealand clash. Wales scrape into this one on the back of a narrow escape against Japan, while New Zealand arrive angry, having been well beaten by England at Allianz Stadium, Twickenham. On paper, this match looks like a major mismatch. In reality, it might be even more one-sided if Wales cannot get a grip on the contact area, something they struggled with against Japan last time out. The headline for Wales is the debut of Ospreys flanker Harry Deeves. This is the kind of story that rugby people really love. He's 24 years old, he was undersized in the eyes of some of the old school selectors, and once a roofer balancing long working hours with training sessions, now he pulls on his national jersey against the All Blacks in what is a major reward for such a hard-working individual. He steps in because Ollie Cracknell picked up a hamstring problem after being player of the match against Japan, in yet another back row blow for Steve Tandy's side. Aaron Wainwright shifts back to number 8. Alex Mann returns to blindside. Deeves is the only specialist open side in the squad after the loss of Morgan to a dislocated shoulder and the non-selection of Tommy Raffel. His rise has been fueled by his speed, aggression and engine that just simply doesn't fade, something that anyone who watches the URC consistently would know. In the backs, Joe Hawkins finally gets another start for Wales. His move from Exeter to the Scarlets makes him eligible again, and he comes straight in at 12s alongside Max Llewellyn. Tom Rogers takes the wing spot with Josh Adams suspended for 2 matches following his red card against Japan. Up front, Rhys Carre and Kieran Azarate return to the starting side after dropping to the bench last week. Brodie Coughlin could debut off the bench, and Gareth Thomas also returns for Tandy's side. Now to the All Blacks. Scott Robertson has ripped up the team sheet after their defeat to England and has made a whopping 12 changes. Only captain Scott Barrett and flanker Simon Parker, as well as Will Jordan in the backs, keep their starting spots. Damien McKenzie steps in at fly half, and he will guide a hugely experienced midfield of Anton Leonard-Brown and Rico Awani. Both men have 87 caps to their names after this one, which tells you exactly how much test experience Robertson is leaning on here following that disappointing defeat to England. Ardy Sevilla is rested, as is Bowden Barrett. Cody Taylor also rests in this one. Peter Lackey is injured, as is Geordie Barrett. This is a changed side, but is not a weakened one really in any way. It's still loaded with plenty of pace, skill and size, as well as that bit of extra experience. Robertson says they are not underestimating Wales, and I believe him in this one. New Zealand know they've been off the pace mentally and physically. They have had long spells this season where simply they've just leaked points and lost control that former All Black sides certainly would not have done. They need a full 80-minute performance here, and they know it. Not necessarily just for the win, but for themselves. The reality, though, is simple. Wales have not beaten New Zealand since 1953. This is 33 consecutive defeats. They come into this match after a shaky win over Japan and, of course, a very heavy defeat to Argentina the week before. New Zealand come in after that bruising defeat that will hurt them badly. That's never really when you want to get an All Black side. The key for Wales is the set piece. If they lose the scrum and the line-out, New Zealand will just absolutely run riot off strike play. They cannot afford messy ball. They cannot afford slow ball, and they cannot afford to give Damien McKenzie a platform to play from, because he will absolutely shred them. My prediction in this one is pretty clear-cut. New Zealand will respond ruthlessly to that England result. I expect them to win by 35 points or more, possibly a bit more given what we saw Argentina do. Now to the big one for the weekend, Ireland versus South Africa at the Aviva Stadium. This is the main event of the weekend. The world champions return to Dublin to face an Ireland side that's still trying to rediscover that edge that made them so consistent over the past 2 seasons, albeit they had a really good outing against Australia last time out. Andy Farrell names a strong group with Caelan Doris captaining the team from the back row. Mac Hansen continues at fullback after an amazing hat-trick performance last week with Tommy O'Brien and James Lowe on the wings. Bundy Aki he links up with Gary Ringrose, who is finally back from injury. Sam Prendergast starts at fly half with Jameson Gibson Park at 9. So that's the big selection talk this week. The pack has heavyweight experience. Porter, Sheehan and Furlong in the front row. James Ryan and Tyg Byrne in the second row. You've then got Ryan Baird, Josh van der Fleer and Caelan Doris in the back row. It's a pretty balanced side and one that's very experienced that you probably could have predicted. The big debate though is of course Prendergast. This is a huge test for him. He looked good against Australia, but that has a match with momentum. When Ireland have struggled up front in this sort of window and previously, he's not had the same control and certainly still struggles massively with his defence. Jack Crowley has paid the price for two poor team performances more than anything, even though he was far from the problem against the All Blacks in Japan. That is the reality of Test rugby, unfortunately, and sometimes the fly half takes the hit as the sort of quarterback of the team. The bench is strong with Ronan Kelleher, Paddy McCarthy, Finlay Beale, Cian Prendergast and Jack Conan in the forwards. We've then got Craig Casey and we've got Crowley and Tom Farrell covering the backs. Now for the South African side, Rassie Erasmus has restored almost his full strength side after resting several key players against Italy last week. This is the group that beat France 2 weeks ago. They mean business and they have looked incredibly impressive every time they play together. Erge Snyman earns his 50th cap and he will want to make a statement in his adopted home city of Dublin. For a player of his quality to arrive at 50 caps only now is remarkable and almost entirely down to the major injuries he has suffered. But make no mistake, when he is fit, he is absolutely elite and arguably the most skillful lock of the past decade. Ibn Etzebeth partners Ruan Norgia, who replaces Lua Diaga, who is suspended. Quagga Smith returns to the bench. The backline is loaded with power and experience. Reinach with Feinberg and Gomezulu, Colby and Moody on the wings, Dialende and Creel in the midfield. Damien Willemse is at fullback and he has looked so good of late. This is a fully loaded Springbok team. Physical, patient, structured and ready to hunt collisions, and they just know how to win big tests. Ireland have not always enjoyed the scrum battle this month, and when the scrum goes, South Africa squeeze every inch of advantage from it. So that is a real danger here for the Irish team. They'll really need to be on point with that. Earlier this week, I'd leaned towards Ireland by 2 to 4 points based on what I'd seen, but after seeing the South African selection and re-watching Ireland against New Zealand, Japan and even Australia, I'm really shifting my prediction here. Ireland look like a team that are still not quite aligned at line-out time and not quite dominant at the time. The Wallabies were so poor that they made them look really good. Against South Africa, that's just not going to flow. My prediction now is South Africa by probably 12 to 15 points, which will be a big win for them. Now to the Stade de France, where we have France versus Australia. Two teams who've disappointed this November have meeting in Paris. France were crushed by South Africa, then rebounded with a scrappy win over Fiji. Australia have been beaten by England, Italy and Ireland, and they just kind of look like a group running on fumes. So it's a weird one coming into this one. France are back at the stadium where they have won 15 of their last 17 matches. Both of those losses coming to the Springboks, interestingly. They have not lost back-to-back matches there since 2018 and 2019. They also have a strong recent record over the Wallabies, so they'll be pretty confident in this one. Fabien Galtier makes 3 changes to his side. Gaël Fickou returns to the midfield. The second row pairing of Thibaut Flamand and Emmanuel Mafu continues. Charles Olivon moves to the back row, and 20-year-old Calvin Gourgeot could debut off the bench in yet another big boost for the young French players. Australia have swung the axe themselves. Kalani Thomas is set for his debut. Carter Gordon returns at fly half. Dylan Peach starts on the wing. Up front, they bring back Taniela Tupou, Billy Pollard and Nick Frost. This is a refreshed Wallabies team, but not necessarily a settled one as we've seen so far this season. Their form has slumped after a really promising early season under Joe Schmidt. The loss to Ireland was heavy and exposed the lack of depth in the forward pack. In fact, it was a record defeat at the hands of the Irish. The key question here is very simple. Do Australia have one big effort left in them? If they can go again with tired legs and slow reactions, they will concede very heavily against this French side. France have made a clear physical advantage up front, and if they can get quick ball, players like Louis Bielbiaré and Damien Penaud will rip the Wallabies to shreds. So they'll be very clear on that. My prediction in this one is France by around 12 points, maybe a bit more. It'll be closer than most people think, but still the French will just have that bit too much in the late exchanges. So that is your full preview of Wales against New Zealand, Ireland against South Africa, and France against Australia. 3 enormous games with 3 very different narratives. Tomorrow we will be back to break down the 2 Sunday matches, which we will see Scotland against Tonga and England against Argentina once the lineups are fully confirmed. We'll also, of course, touch on Italy versus Chile when we have a little bit more information that we can delve into. If you've enjoyed this preview, please feel free to hit that subscribe button, drop us a comment with your predictions for this weekend, and we will see you tomorrow for another edition of Rugby Today. As ever, we really appreciate you checking in.